For Trifecta on PJTV, I'm Scott Ott, and today we bring you another dispatch from my campaign trail where I'm learning more about the nuts and bolts of our constitutional republic than perhaps I care to know as I run my race for Lehigh County Executive. Last week on Trifecta and my column at pajamasmedia.com, I encouraged you to go and get a copy of your county budget and pull together some friends and start digging into it, and then to publish your findings, direct questions to your local officials, and generally do the job that local journalists no longer do. Today, I want you to consider another proactive step to get at the roots of the problem in our constitutional republic. Find out who's funding your local elections and broadcast that information. Now, to help us think through the implications of this, I want to bring in PJTV's Colorado-based editor, Steve Green, our own vodka pundit. You know, Steve, the local campaign finance report that I looked at this week has a bunch of political action committees with names like Good Government Committee and the Committee for a Better Harrisburg and Urban Development PAC, Freedom PAC, Keystone PAC. There's a bunch of them also that are alphabet soup, CHH, BKA, TC, YP, and the common thread in all of these is if you Google these names of these PACs, you get almost nothing but a mailing address and the fact that they contribute to local campaigns. Does this raise any concerns in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. You know, Democrats, Republicans, it really doesn't matter anymore. And it shows in the turnout. You're supposed to get 25% of registered voters in an off-year election? We don't know where the money's coming from. We know where it goes, but then, as we talked about last week, we don't really know what happens to it except it comes back smaller. So we've got to clean up the system. I do three things. First, I'd abolish PACs. Second, I'd repeal all campaign finance laws except for one new one. And that'd be immediate disclosure of all contributions published on the internet and in an easy-to-search common database format. Third, term limits top to bottom. I don't care if you're a dog catcher or President of the United States. And if a waiting period is good for buying guns, how about for running for office? Candidates should have to spend at least 2 years in between elected positions working in the private sector, doing real work.
Well, as long as we don't let that dog catcher, directly address America's school children while at school, I'm okay with that. Bill Whittle, our PJTV cognoscentus and blogger at eject.com. You know, Bill, don't the people behind these political action committees, these PACs, don't they have a right to privacy? I mean, why should we ordinary voters nose around in their business?
You know, when you were doing the introduction to this, I was reminded of one of my favorite moments on The Simpsons, back when The Simpsons was funny. And it was one of those Troy McClure documentaries about the little boy who wants to see inside the slaughterhouse to see how hamburgers are made. And he's all excited, and he goes in, and then when he comes out after seeing how the machine actually works, he's like, he's just vibrating, you know. The more you tell us, Scott, of the fundamental workings that actually goes on behind the scenes, even in a relatively small public position like the Lehigh County position you're running for, the more we hear about this, the more I turn into that little boy who just sits there with just wide eyes, just quaking in fear. It's like, what has been seen cannot be unseen. I don't want to know how bad things are. But you're absolutely right. Some of these numbers that you were bandying about in terms of what your opponent spends and what he spends relative to what the job costs, I'd love to hear you say that again, frankly. I don't want to steal your thunder, because when you get into the amount of money that goes into these jobs versus what the job pays, something's going on that we're not aware of. Why don't you tell us some of those things you told us about?
Well, back in 2005, when the incumbent who's in office now won this race, he spent $452,000 plus on his race for a job that pays $65,000 a year. A total of more than $500,000 was spent in that campaign.
Something fishy going on here.
You know, Steve, let me ask you this. The second thing that shocked me when I peeked into these campaign finance reports, and this is just for one candidate in a local race, was the vast number of labor union PACs that are behind this. I mean, you get the sense that every carpenter, electrical worker, plumber, bricklayer, steam fitter, and iron worker within 250 miles really wants his money going into this one man's campaign. Should union membership make you an involuntary fundraiser for politicians?
Well, absolutely not. But that's, why union dues are mandatory, so that people don't get a say of what happens to their money or what politicians do with it or what causes its support or what causes a support. But once that it comes out of somebody's paycheck, the government can do with it, well, whatever they like, which is why so many Democrats are in such a rush to pass card check, which will open up the floodgates even more as more and more people are pressured by union thugs into joining unions, having money taken out of their paychecks, whether they like it or not, and then that money is just a stream going to Democratic candidates. It's one of these Washington's famous self-licking ice cream cones, and other than right to work, I don't know how to put a stop to it.
You know, you may have hit on something because the guy whose campaign finance reports I was looking into has actually certified a union card check election, so you may have something there. Bill, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and I'm just going to throw this out there. The third shocker for me was that some of the major contributors to this Democrat candidate were also major contributors to Republican candidates. These are rich guys that I'm supposed to be soliciting for funds. What's wrong with wealthy people betting both sides of the game? 30 seconds.
You know, you can play that both ways. It's like the guy says, well, I know what side my bread is buttered on. It's buttered on both sides. I'm not taking any chances. You know, if a guy is contributing to your campaign, Scott, he's also contributing to the campaign of the guy who you are running against, then that's simply saying that he is expecting some kind of payback. It's not an ideological issue. He's not contributing to a Republican because he likes a Republican. He's saying, I'm going to put money in both parties because whoever wins, I want some say. That's not right.
That's Bill Whittle from eject.com and PJTV. Steve, in your 30 seconds, am I just tilting at windmills here? I mean, why does the cash behind these local campaigns even matter? 30.
You know, it comes down to the same thing it always does. The system's rigged, with a few notable exceptions, such as yourself, Democrat, Republican. It barely matters anymore. There's only one solution, and that's to throw the bastards out, all of them, and keep throwing them out until we get, well, the change we really want. So today, I'm pledging not to vote for any incumbent who's ever voted to increase the size and scope of government, and I encourage everybody else to do the exact same thing.
That's Steve Green from vodkapundit.com and our own PJTV Colorado correspondent. You know, perhaps one of the best arguments for limited government is that the bigger government gets, the harder it is for us to keep track of what our so-called public servants are doing. Even in the internet age, with unprecedented information at our fingertips, the people who go to the polls are too often informationally naked. They don't possess even the most basic facts by which to make reasoned choices. There's no excuse for that, and you and I can do something about it by becoming conduits of knowledge. It's tangible action that you can take right now. I'm Scott Ott from ScrappleFace.com and the Washington Examiner for Trifecta on PJTV.